that he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide.
Yep, that is our president, Donald John Trump, 34-time felon Donald Trump, and our AG, Attorney General Pam Bondi, talking about the new developments in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Okay, now why this is important is because Jeffrey Epstein was essentially, allegedly, let's just say this, he was allegedly he was a convicted sex trafficker. He was a convicted, pedophile basically, and sex trafficker of young girls. But what he was also friends with many of the richest and most important and powerful people on the planet, including that man who's saying, "You still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?" Our current president. He was also friends with Bill Clinton. He was also friends with Bill Gates. He was also friends with a lot of the richest and most important and powerful people in our government and in our world. And the reason that this story has, I forgot Prince Andrew, the Prince of England, that guy, the United Kingdom, just a prince. Just a prince. Sorry, folks, somebody's, I don't know, letting off fireworks or something outside of the... Sound like somebody letting off fireworks here at very close to the studio. You have to, I hope it's not transferring through the mic here. But yes, Jeffrey Epstein was somebody who was alleged to have sex trafficked minors for presidents, for prime ministers, for movie stars, for actors and he had a plane called the Lolita Express that many of the most famous and wealthy people in our world flew on, including Bill Clinton 27 times. I'm not sure if Donald Trump flew on it, but I know he was very good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein said that Donald Trump was his best friend for 10 years. Said he was his best friend for 10 years. And so now where we're at is over the last week or so, footage has come out from our government that is claiming that it shows that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Now we have breaking news right here. The footage from Jeffrey Epstein's cell that was released by the Department of Justice was edited by Adobe Premiere Pro and stitched from 2 totally different clips and was saved 4 times, according to Wired magazine, which is a magazine for the tech-savvy, tech-literate individuals. And so now we know that this footage that was supposed to have shown that Jeffrey Epstein actually did commit suicide, that nobody was allowed near his cell and nobody came in or out of his cell, has been manipulated. We know this now. This is an absolute bombshell. Because for years, since he allegedly committed suicide, they told us that there was no footage, that none of the cameras were working at the jail in New York that Jeffrey Epstein was being held at. So now we see that they are just lying to us constantly. And so one of the crazy things about this is that the orbit around Donald Trump, a lot of the right-wing influencers who helped Donald Trump get elected, Jeffrey Epstein was their call celeb. In their minds, they thought they were going to expose a bunch of pedophile Democrats and Hollywood people and, you know, people from other countries, completely ignoring that Donald Trump was, again, good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Their logic is that, well, Trump and Epstein had a falling out once Donald Trump found out what Epstein was about. But that's a lot of, you know, you're using a lot of you're putting a lot of faith in a man who has no problems dealing with the worst individuals on planet Earth, dictators, corrupt business people, who's willing to fill his cabinet with sex offenders, people who've been accused of rape, sexual assault, be friends with people who are accused of rape and sexual assault. Again, him and Bill Clinton were friends for many years. We all know all the stuff Bill Clinton's been accused of over the years, including paying $800,000 to Paula Jones for his sexual harassment case while he was president. So we know Donald Trump does not care much about people's sex crimes. I mean, his good friend Vince McMahon, the wrestling magnate, as we speak, is facing a horrific sexual, even sex trafficking lawsuit himself. He's sort of in a similar spot to where Diddy was a few weeks ago, for abusing one of his alleged paramours. And so we know Donald Trump does not have much morality in terms of who he's dealing with, but in the minds of a lot of right-wing influencers, they had faith. They really did. They had faith that these files were going to come out and show that, you know, that Donald Trump was so innocent about all this. And one of the people who had the most to say about this was Kash Patel, who is now our director of the FBI. In 2023, he talked about the Epstein files. This is what he had to say.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting
Yes.
of the Catholic school.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for
Right.
local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts.
So that's the current director of the FBI talking about the past director of the FBI under Joe Biden, saying, yeah, they've got the Epstein Black Book. Now our government is saying that there is no Epstein Black Book and that, hey, Epstein just up and killed himself. Another one of the influencers who had a whole lot to say when before they got into power was Dan Bongino. He had a lot to say about Jeffrey Epstein's case. Now Bongino is the deputy director of the FBI, but before that point, he was talking all about the Jeffrey Epstein case. This is what he had to say.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. It says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who is a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right, swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%.
I mean,
let's get
So that's the current deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, a few years ago talking about he heard that Epstein was intelligence, either wittingly or unwittingly, and that there are governments that are relying on those files of possibly other, some of the world's most powerful and wealthiest individuals cavorting with underage children. This is what they were saying before they got into power. All of them. All of them. They had complete faith that Trump had nothing to do with this. This man, after he found out what he was really about, in spite of the fact that, Donald Trump actually in interviews talked about how him and Jeffrey Epstein got along so well because they both liked young women. And he said, Jeffrey likes him on the young side. Now, to be fair, that could be 19, okay? That could be 19. But I'm just saying, they were friends. And Donald Trump was aware that Jeffrey Epstein liked women much younger than himself. And so, this is Alina Habba, who is Trump's personal lawyer. Just in February, even after they took office, they were still hyping up the Epstein files. They were still saying, okay, there's going to be this huge disclosure of sick people, famous people, people with power, who are going to be found to have been abusing children. So this is Alina Habba.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
So here we go again. That's Alina Habba. That's Donald Trump's personal lawyer talking about what Epstein was about. There's flight logs, there's all this stuff of proving that Epstein had all these underage girls, these young girls. Oh my God. There's going to be accountability for all these monsters And so, of course, the person who matters the most is AG Pam Bondi. She's the Attorney General. She fed into this. This is even after they've taken office. She's talking about how she actually talked about how the Epstein files were all sitting on her desk.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
So again, that's Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, talking about the Epstein files. She also did another interview where she talked about this.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have, well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah, what you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information, but it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay, well, we'll
along
look
with
for
his
that.
co-defendant.
Absolutely, and he had help. That's for
He
sure.
sure did.
Yeah. So again, virtually everybody in the orbit around Donald Trump said Jeffrey Epstein was a sicko. He had all these victims. We have the files. We have the videos. And now, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Clear the area. They give us a doctored video saying that he killed himself. When now, I mean, even if you believed he killed himself before, I thought there was a possibility that, well, maybe somebody got to him and said, look, if you don't kill yourself, we're going to kill your whole family or something. We're going to kill your kids or your wife or your daughter or whatever, your brother, your sister, your mother, your auntie, whatever. Take the easy way out. It's almost like what the FBI did to Martin Luther King. The FBI tried to make Martin Luther King kill himself. They said, if you don't kill yourself, we're going to release this, and this about you. But now, I mean, looking at this, I can't imagine a world in which he actually killed himself. I really can't. In the chat, Miss Janice Sills Hopkins said, we will never get to the bottom of this mess because we're dealing with a bunch of liars and criminals. That's absolutely true. We are definitely dealing with a bunch of liars and criminals, and shameless liars. Shameless liars. You heard all that Bongino and Kash Patel and all these people are saying, and then now they are out there doing damage control and completely trying to rewrite the narrative of this case. It is insane how they are rewriting this case. This is Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, I think this was about a month ago, completely reversing their prior statements.
Have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Well, okay. Well, case closed. Case closed, everybody. Case closed. And not only that, they sent out, Trump's press secretary Caroline Levitt to completely gaslight all of us into trying to gaslight us into believing that we did not see and we have not heard all the things we've seen and heard.
That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looked at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
I've got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Well, that completely that solved that problem. I guess I have no choice but to believe that Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's ex-girlfriend in Girl Friday, who's currently serving a 20-year sentence in a Florida prison for her 2021 conviction on 5 counts related to recruiting and grooming underage girls for sex trafficking. I have no choice but to believe apparently she wasn't sex trafficking to anybody. Case closed. There's no crime. No victims, apparently. Virginia Giuffre, the 41-year-old woman who was Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent victim, just supposedly committed suicide about a month ago after telling everybody on social media that she wasn't going to commit suicide. She talked about how she had been passed around by Jeffrey Epstein and his rich and famous friends, including people like Alan, she said it, not me, Alan Dershowitz. She said that she had seen people like Bill Clinton there. Now, she didn't say anything about Donald Trump, but she did talk about Bill Clinton. She talked about other high-profile individuals. Prince Andrew was the person she said was the most high-profile person that she had sex with, or was molested by, because she was an underage girl, and obviously she could not render consent at that point in her life. Prince Andrew said that, she's lying, it's crazy. And then we get the picture that tells the story that actually Prince Andrew had met this young woman, and her story was starting to check out. We're going to go to a break in a minute, but I want you to think about the victims here. The victims here, they are the ones who are, they're the ones we have to remember here. This is one of Epstein's many victims talking about what her experience was. And so now this must be heartbreaking, knowing that people like her may never, ever get any justice whatsoever. We'll be right back after these.
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what she, Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison, because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years. I was 10 years old when Liz Stein was being trafficked. I was 10. That is how long the sex trafficking ring has been going on.
10 years old. All right, folks. When we come back, we're going to get into a trial a case that I believe is actually probably related. And if you look at how the beast does business, a lot of times they send you a lot of signals at the same time. It just so happens that these two cases are being sort of resolved at the same exact time. We're going to talk about Diddy when we get back here on WLTH 1370 AM, straight out of the cannon with me, Scott Cannon. We'll be right back after these.